because it's a little bit more funny. He did a couple of edits. He said, okay, make this change and make this change. So he said, write one more verse so that a 6-year-old would make sense of it. NIS is like a big race car game where the drivers race to win the fame. They drive super fast and try to be fast, but they have to be careful or they might crash and burst. On pit road, they stop and fix the car, but they have to be quick or they won't get far. One driver's car got ran over. Oh no. They had to go home. Their race was a no go. But don't worry, because NIS, there's always another chance for success. The driver will come back with a better car, ready to go fast and go far.
Nice. You read that more of a soliloquy, not quite a rap. We need to get a beat track in the background next time.
Is I could post record that and actually do some live beatboxing.
There you go, Dave. Make a whole track of that whole conversation.
Hi, Brian. We got some teasers put out throughout the week. Quick hit.
Yeah, so these are based on all the new content. You had a Formula Ford at the new track. The late models was a YouTube video from iRacing showing the new late model, and the circuit day you're at. Dave, you help me out. That you're the linguist here.
Hareth.
There you go. I'm way off. But yeah, so these are just introduction videos. We've seen them before from iRacing when they do these on YouTube. They're always really high quality, excellent videos as always. And it just gives you a little bit more introduction and seeing these cars on track. So yeah, cool stuff again.
Regarding the Formula Ford, it does have the Ford engine. I was looking up the info on it. But for the gearbox, I was watching the in the cockpit view of this thing, and there's no paddles on the back side of the wheel, and it does have a shifter mounted to the right, you can see. So it looks like it's going to be a regular, I don't know if it's sequential or not, but no paddles on the column.
It's H pattern. I tested it yesterday.
H pattern?
Yeah, it's an H pattern shifter. You can whip out the old H pattern, everybody.
That's why you need one. There you go.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I tested it out, and it felt a lot like the Formula V, just more horsepower. So you got a little bit more high speeds, but it felt like the grip was about the same. Especially on cold tires. The Formula V, and this one were both the same. I just did a bunch of practice laps, and I, early in the race, I tended to want to spin out really easy before the tires heat up, and it was the same thing that I used to happen when I was racing the Formula V.
I'm excited to paint that late model stock. Hopefully, maybe this weekend. But I keep hearing there's a lot of grip within that car. But I'm hearing a lot of good things about it as well. That it's a lot of fun to drive and you can race it really well. So give that one a go as well.
Yeah, I did test that one too. I tested that when they had some practice sessions at Hickory, and it does have a lot of grip. It's got a good lot of motor on it. Coming off those real sharp turns on those short tracks, it's got a good sound. The sound of the motor is really has a good growl to it, and I liked it. I tested it, and it made me tempted me to do some racing in it because it was a lot of fun.
This is going to prompt me to jump ahead on the script to the next story. Late model stock, is it broken or is it super grip? And we actually had listener Ryan Carwile ask Landon Huffman, who actually is a late model driver. He saw Landon in a practice on this new car, and he asked him, are the cars way too gripped up, right? And Landon replied, yes, bad. I also saw a different post in the forums about this where Eric Hudek from the staff said they're aware that the grip is too high. They're already making adjustments and have knocked a full second off of the lap times at Hickory already on the adjustments for the patch.
And that patch comes out, was that today or tomorrow?
Well, we had one today, but I don't think it included those changes. So maybe a future patch. Also, former teammate Adam Jocelyn posted up on the Twitter that he tried the car and he called it the late model stuck car. Ha ha ha. Stuck car.
Nice.
I'm sure they'll get it figured out and move along from there.
Yeah, if it gets loosened up a bit, it'll definitely make a big impact on those lap times. Because when I was going around Hickory, it was tight. It was tight because you could drive it in as hard as you want, and it still wouldn't rotate.
Now this makes me think again on quality over quantity when it comes to these releases. Would it be difficult to have somebody test this car that knows what they're doing prior to releasing it to the public?
Dale Earnhardt Jr. was testing the car. We covered that last week.
I mean, good gosh, like why is it this off?
Well, Nick Nebon did a video and he tried it like at Charlotte and some other places, and his comment was, "Man, this feels like an Indy car in the corners. It's got so much grip. It's like too much grip."
Yeah, and maybe have a Landon Huffman. He's pretty engaging on social media. Maybe just throw some dollars at some of these actual drivers to have them test this car out, or any car in general, before they release it. Because I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's very complicated. Like if they could just easily fix it. Yeah, they need to do it for every car they release.
Right, like when they did the rally cars, they would get Travis Pastrana, people like that to test it, and so yeah, you're right. I mean, you would think they would have brought in people.
Well, Christian Chandler, that's one of his main jobs is testing and balancing the cars, especially on the sports car side. Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, it's going to be hard to get every level of motorsport out there, but I mean, at this day and age, when you could probably just send a file to somebody and say, "Hey, run this. Tell us what you think. Is it far off? Is it close?" And I don't know.
Let's switch gears to Porsche weekend. And first, they had the All-Star race, and it was crazy. It's at Long Beach of all places, and with these All-Stars, it was pretty comical watching them try to get through the track without wrecking. We had a replay here from Casey Kerwin and Matt Malone. What do you guys think? It actually looks kind of fun.
Who got turned in front of Matt Malone there in his video?
Some poor sap, I'm sure. Yeah, he got the worst of it for sure. Matt was able to keep going.
Yeah, he yells out Dave. I don't know if it was Dave that Cam that got turned in front of him, but looks like they're having fun for what it's worth.
I mean, he didn't even go like 20 feet, and the guy turned across his nose.
It says they're onto the
Yeah,
GT4s for the following week in Coda. Are they still going to use Porsche though? Obviously Porsche, and they just run the GT4 platform. Okay.
Yes, that's right. They do three more different cars. They do 4 different cars throughout this season, and they actually finished the last 3 or 4 races in the Mission electric car. So that's where they're ending that All-Star race.
I need to do a better job. Maybe set a reminder on my calendar, because I remember watching this last year and enjoying it, but I just can't remember these days on really anything to watch. But this series is always fun. Obviously, the Coke series that we follow, but I need to do a better job at watching these when they happen.
So
yeah, and then Brian, the pros ran as well.
Yeah, they did. And the winner of the race was Sebastian Job. He finally had a good early season race where he didn't run into too much trouble. Second was Charlie Collins. Jordan Caruso was third. And this race, again, at Long Beach with these cars and what all that's on the line for this series was interesting, to say the least. The hairpin turn was really tough. A couple of times they had the stack ups at the hairpins. And yeah, it was not well received by all the drivers.
there's a familiar name, Brian. Diego Pinto in third in points.
Sure is. Diego Pinto's third in points. Jordan Caruso's in second. Charlie Collins is in first. Sebastian Jobs actually tied with Diogo. I guess he's got a tiebreaker, but they have the same amount of points for third. Pinto is the returning champion in the series. Job won it a few years ago. So, yeah, so it's good to see Sebastian getting backed up there, getting a good finish. And did you see who finished 10th in that race? That would be one Bobby Zielinski, Coke driver, finished 10th. Good job for Bobby. Again, these are Bobby, one of the better all-around racers in the sim. So not surprised, but I'm always awed by his talent for sure. He got involved in a wreck in the first race, so he started up front in the second and made his way to the front and had a decent lead. And then Kerwin and the Porsche driver were just running him down with like 2 laps to go. They were right on Dave's tail, and he was able to keep them behind him. It was all legit. He didn't do any kind of crazy moves or blocks, and had a great last 2 laps to keep those guys behind him and get a win in the All-Star race. Congratulations, Dave Cam.
Post race, one of the drivers, Kevin Ellis Jr., posted, "What a sad display it was today. Tracks like Long Beach don't appear or don't belong in a series like PESC with how the series is structured and how car contacts are dealt with. Feel bad for the drivers on iRacing's Premier Road Series should look better than it did today. Even as a spectator, I was getting spotter calls 2 or 3 times a lap saying, 'You've knocked your wheels out of alignment,' even though we weren't touching the wall. That combined with the smoke coming off the cars every lap when close to a wall made for sad viewing." Did you notice any of that, Brian? Like the smoke coming off the wall every lap and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I sure did. And it's one of those things when you're watching a race and you see smoke, your eyes like gets drawn directly to the smoke all the time because you think something's crazy happened. But it wasn't. It was just the cars, especially coming off the hairpin, as they exited and they got close to the wall, a giant puff of smoke would pop up whether they hit the wall or not. It was kind of weird. But yeah, street courses in general are difficult races to do. There's no room. The track gets blocked. There's hairpin turns. Street courses are really tough. And even these top drivers, man, they struggled when they were pushing as hard as they were on this course.
So let's put a stock car there.
Yeah, really.
Hey, they're not making that hairpin.
Has anybody tried running the A car at Long Beach?
No, but maybe a handbrake installed, it might get around that corner.
I might go try that just for giggles. I have run the cup. I have actually run the old Gen 6, I guess, at Le Mans, and that's not too terrible because most of those corners are pretty wide open. Or I mean, there's wide as far as how wide the road is and such.
Well, we'll get to see the real next gen cars at a street course. It's just Chicago instead of Long Beach this year.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Right.
When I referenced it. All right. Speaking of the car that shall not be named, at least by its old name, Greg West has posted a season for 2002 or to the 23 season 2 iRacing schedule for open and fixed setups for the IR18 series. All right. So y'all know what that car used to be called, right? We shall not name it, or like lightning will come down and strike us from some lawyer somewhere. But there, I did get a chance while y'all were talking over the Porsche Cup to glance down through the forums. They had to put this schedule together themselves instead of going through the usual community involvement, and there was a lot of sour grapes in the post. But this is some they did what they had to do in this current situation and couldn't really go the same route as they usually do. Though Greg West did reply a couple times. One of the guys replied to him and said, I understand that y'all were acting in good faith. Then he goes and turns around and asks all the follow up questions that we haven't heard. Basically, is what's going to change? Is the discussions over? What is it going to look like for the next year, 2, 3, 4? Basically because they said, hey, we're working on things, and that was the last we heard, right? He didn't answer that though. So
Yeah, look what's on the schedule for Memorial Day weekend that week. Spa looks like.
Yeah.
So, I was just taking a glance over at the special series list, and obviously the Indiana car iRacing series is no more. They don't even have it as a placeholder anymore. But yeah, like you were mentioning, Dave, nobody in the forum seemed to like it. Maybe a couple people liked it, but it's just this is the U.S. or North American Open Wheel Series, and 5 of the 12 weeks are spent overseas. So I don't know.
It's like, it's an IndyCar, series. I'll say the word IndyCar, but when
How
you look
dare
at the
you?
tracks, these aren't IndyCar tracks, really. Uh, there's Milwaukee. That's a kind of an IndyCar track, or it used to be, or whatever. But the rest of them, no. And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan. I mean, the whole idea is you want to run the IndyCar on the IndyCar tracks, and obviously, they're forbidden to doing that. So they just built this schedule to be completely opposite that.
It's such a shame. So so essentially, I'm curious what the participation is now with it, but it's
Kill it.
killed it more than I thought it would. To be honest, I thought they would still sneak in some of the stuff, but apparently they're holding true to what they probably have to do. So it's a shame. It sucks. Auto Club looks interesting though. I'm looking at that one. I might put that one on the calendar.
All right. Late model stock. We were just talking about this a little bit earlier, weren't we? Broken or super grip?
Skip that one. We already did it.
Okay. So the next one we got is SimDcar, which is the new Delara IO01 package. We've already talked about this, and this is a clever acronym, SIMD. I like it.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
It might catch on.
Nick Nebon did some videos. I mean, Nick, I got to give a shout out for Nick. I mean, when the content is released in iRacing, he has 2, 3, 4 videos out the same day showing that content. So before you even get home from work, I mean, you can see what's going on, and he talks about it. But I mean, the first thing he did was get out on Texas to try to recreate the kart debacle at Texas, where they blacked out from too many G forces. And based on the times he was getting, it looks like, yeah, he indeed would be blacking out if this was the real car. He ran the car at a few other tracks, I think, as well, to try to get some baseline. Like even the short track like Dover, boy, it really looked fun at Dover.
Now,
It's got Bristol as well.
If they come out, sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I was just saying, when I was practicing with this at Texas, I was running laps in the 22 seconds.
Wow.
If they come out and make a schedule adjustment and bring in the whatever Indiana 500 with this car, are you guys going to run it, or would it not be the same?
Yeah, maybe if everyone else does. I mean, that's the thing. I'm all about big participation, big events. But man, if everyone did it, yeah, why not?
After having the benefit of Richie Hearn doing my setup for an Indy 500 and winning that one, and then him kind of going away the next year and not having that support, it's kind of hard to get back in the car now.
It might be fun, like as a protest race, like that one guy did with the Daytona 500 when he ran it as a protest. So yeah, let's get it. SimD 500. Let's go.
Yeah, maybe. Of course, I'm sure there'll be somebody who puts up a hosted or league or something like that. But I'd still like to see official. But I know they don't want to get sued. All right, I got this one. This is the big story, guys. Out of all the stuff going on this week, we have not talked about the big story. Can you believe it? So what happened was the build came out Tuesday, and by Tuesday night, we're hearing word of mouth through the community, hey, go try the ARCA car. Well, guess what? I mean, the ARCA car wasn't in the release notes, okay? But apparently something's changed. We even heard it in our iRacers Lounge Discord. One of our listeners said, hey, go try it. Long story short, iRacing has mistakenly, according to Greg West, removed the limiter on the ARCA car, causing the engine to go from a high of around 7,000 RPM up to 9,700 RPM. Word spread quickly and hosted races popped up organically. And I kind of tried to follow this on social media, and I have a link. I have a dozen links here of people who are trying it, putting up videos on Twitter, um, describing how awesome it is. Um, Basically, it felt like NASCAR Gen 4 because without the limiter, there's like 900 horsepower or something. It's got some crazy power. We heard from all kinds of people in the community about, hey, iRacing, this is awesome. Please don't revert it. Please keep the change. And lots of positive communication too. Like Ben Bafford, for example, here's what he posted. iRacing, we're begging you not to touch this car. You have to drive the damn thing. This is one of our last hopes for a car that's enjoyable to drive start to finish. This is the stuff we signed up for, not the bullshit we drive today.
I like it. Not that it matters, but if it's a mistake or not.
Of really good racing from the back in the day when, at a mile and a half, you're going 190 down the straight, but in the corners, you're doing 160. And a lot of the community, I think, is really like, whoa, I mean, this is what we're missing in NASCAR. So it's not really just about the car is so cool. It's about, wow, this really brings us back to how NASCAR should be, and that kind of thing. So I think that was a big part of the enthusiasm about how this car was driving on Tuesday night. A couple of quotes. Mike Conti said, in my 14 years of being on the sim, I've never seen the community so unified and genuinely excited. It's an incredible contrast to the norm, and I love it. Best mistake ever. And then Kevin King, he said, one thing on the Arcus car stuff it did show was how the community can be positive. We need more of that and less negativity. I enjoyed reading and watching people's excitement driving the car, which is a very nice change from the seeming norm. Let's try to do more of it. But like you said, the next day, Donnie, Greg Hill gave confirmation on Twitter that, hey, we hear you guys and we're going to get this. And then it wasn't long after that iRacing put out the official announcement that they're going to bring out Gen 4 Cup starting next week.
It's too bad we can't get NASCAR to do the same thing.
So details are trickling out. Race links for the next Gen 4 Cup series. It'll be fixed. It's going to match the race links for the C Open. So 80 laps on a mile and a half, 60 on like an auto club. And so the idea is maybe get some green flag runs.
I'm sorry, Mike. I might have. Is it going to be a C-class car?
Yeah. So then, if you scroll down, there's some more information here. It will debut a new series at the Class C license level called Gen 4 Cup Fixed. Look now, they also said moving forward, we're looking to update the iRacing ARCA car to a modern version, as well as update the Gen 4 car in the future to our current standards.
I like it. So now we have an 87 series. Now we're going to get a Gen 4 series. It's interesting. I don't think it's going to take away from your participation in anything like NIS or anything like that. But I don't know, Mike. How much of this are you going to run? It's fixed, so we don't have to worry about tweaking nothing, and we just hop in the car and drive.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to run it. It's going to be an hourly kind of series, so you can pick a day. So I'll probably run it on Mondays or Tuesdays, maybe Thursday nights or something like that, when I usually don't run. But the schedule has been announced as well. We got Homestead, Richmond, Charlotte, Bristol, Daytona, California, Dover, Atlanta, the old Atlanta, Talladega, Nashville, Darlington, and Old Texas.
And there's a second story today where you get to say, "Don't get rid of your age patterns."
Good point.
That is a good point.
So I jumped in this car and ran it at Michigan. I ran it at Charlotte, and my initial reaction is this is just like the Gen 5 car. Now I'm used to running hosted Chris McGuire Gen 5 at Talladega, and this feels very, very much like that. And why? It's the horsepower. It's not the car underneath it. It's the engine, man. And man, it just feels so fun to drive a car with that much power.
Now, if this becomes a mainstay, I wonder if they'll give us the Ford and Dodge bodies.
Well, obviously they're going to take the existing ARCA car and just put no limiter on it and start a series Monday. But like I said a moment ago, they're going to scan a car and do it proper, in the future. But that's a good point, Donnie. Are we going to get different makes?
I like it.
And what year is this Gen 4? I mean, technically, is that 2004?
It's the early 2000s. I think it might have started when Ford went to the Thunderbird, maybe. I'm not sure, but definitely late 90s into the 2000s before the car of the tomorrow.
So a couple things to follow up. I think initially when people found this Tuesday night, the concern was, oh man, iRacing's going to change it. They're going to fix it. They're going to put the limiter back on it on the next patch and it's going to be gone. And so it was really neat to see how organically people were jumping in and let's go race this thing now before it's completely gone forever. Like we're only going to get one day to race this thing. And people were racing it like that. In fact, Donnie, I think you said your son, you caught your son racing this thing that day.
Well, yeah, he's who I heard it from. I was actually driving through the desert on Tuesday night. He calls me and he's super excited. And then later I find out he's in that Nick Neben video. Just randomly, I happen to be watching it and I see his name, and he's the car in the very beginning that just darts off the track because he spun his tires on the start somehow. But yeah, no, he's enjoying it.
A lot of horsepower. You can spin your tires now.
Look, if you haven't driven a car with that much power like the Gen 5, yeah, you're going to be in for a treat. I can't tell our listeners enough. Drop what you're doing, run this series starting Monday. Okay? You'll thank me later.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of when they did Mount Washington and everybody started doing the soapbox, and then iRacing's like, hey, everybody's having a good time with the soapbox, let's make it an actual race, and they actually modified setups and stuff to do it.
Yeah, kudos to iRacing for playing along with the community, for accepting what we're asking for. They could have been hard nosed on this. You know what? We don't have a Gen 4 car. This is an ARCA car. Maybe we'll scan one in the future. We're going to put it back the way it was. They didn't do that. They could have done that. But kudos to everybody over there for recognizing this was a moment in the community. It was really a moment for the oval community coming together, everyone in agreement, like nobody out of agreement on this at all. And again, everything was so positive, which is so rare because we're usually tearing everyone down.
Now, here's a question for you, though, guys. if this didn't resemble a car that actually existed, the Gen 4 car, would they have kept it? So if they made a modification on a rally car or something like that by mistake, and would they and everybody liked it, but it didn't resemble anything in real life, would they have kept that?
Yeah, probably not. But this car, the Arca is the twisted sister car, right? The frames are twisted, cockeyed, they're crab walking or whatever you want to call it. I think the Gen 4 were not that type of car. I think the Gen 4 were, they weren't cockeyed.
Yeah, so Gen 4 was, I looked it up, 1992, so it incorporated the early 90s all the way to 2000. So the Gen 4 was a part of the Twisted Sister era. The Twisted Sister era started, I want to say, early 2000s, and then to its demise. I think a part of the safety reasons, but I think that's what NASCAR wanted to get away from, was all that body work, and then that's when they went to the car tomorrow for safety reasons. And I think
Gen
to
5.
get the cars, yeah, Gen 5, right? So yeah, it lasted longer. It was a longer generation than I thought it was. So it incorporated both the Thunderbird and the Taurus, the Lumina, the Monte Carlo, the Grand Prix. Let's get that body out there as well.
So that means the car is true to form. It really is a Gen 4 car. It could be a Gen 4 car.
Yep.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about, the fact that there's no racing in Indiana anymore. And the same guys that are involved in that have now dropped the servers for NASCAR Heat. So we have a tweet from Ellen Bailey, and that's basically that Motorsports Games has shut down all of its NASCAR Heat servers.
Yeah, I think there's a NASCAR Ignition that came out after Heat, so maybe these are just older servers. Maybe they're not getting a lot of action.
Well, if you look at some of the replies, Alan did get a retweet a update from the company that actually said this: online multiplayer issues. Our team is aware of service issues that may be impacting your experience. We're working on getting you back on track as soon as possible.
Some of the comments are great. What an awesome company.
Wouldn't you just love to be a sanctioning body and do business with somebody like this? Man, where do we sign up? Now, I'm not afraid to get on Twitter and tweet Jay Fry, the director of IndyCar, about this decision, and I've done it before. So, yeah, Jay Fry, look him up. He used to be in NASCAR for a long time, but he's running IndyCar over there.
All right, this one has to be yours, Donnie. Take it over.
Yeah, LA Rush Hour. What do you get when you have a 60-car field and the new Renault car at the LA Coliseum? Nick Nebon found out essentially it's LA Rush Hour traffic. That's a whole lot of cars on that. Well, they are tiny little two-door hatchbacks, so I guess you could fit them around there. But obviously what occurred from this was mayhem. LA traffic, pretty much in a nutshell.
Yeah, I watched this video. It was funny. So when they line up to start the race, he didn't qualify, so he started in last place. And as they're starting the race, the lead car was like just a little bit behind him as he was at the tail end of the lap. So, and when they when they take off to start their pace lap, he actually was getting passed by the pace car, and finally caught back up. And then once the race started, it was a disaster. It was crazy.
I loved it when they got wrecked or whatever, and they all just stop, and he's like waiting to try to see if he can inch his way through, and like some of them will like tow and escape out, and then he'll have a path to get through, and it looks like fun. I mean, what a great idea to try, just for kicks.
Yeah, for a track that small, you'll want something slower that you can actually navigate around the corner decently. But sitting in the stands this year at that race, I'm thinking, why didn't they bring any kind of support series in to run on the track before the Cup race? But something like this, as goofy as the Clio Cup would be on an oval like this, it would be fun to watch. It'd be like county fair stuff.
Even
What's
like a demo derby kind of thing, like just get junk cars out there running around or something.
Yeah, street stock.
Lemons? How much is the footprint on this car? How much does it compare to a Mazda? How many Mazdas could you fit on there?
It's got to be relatively close. I think you can do 60 Mazdas on there.
Is this a road racing car?
Yes.
Yeah, but sometimes you can have the funnest oval races with a production car like the Jetta, which I think this is replacing the Jetta. We used to have a blast and hosted running the Jetta at Vegas on the oval. It was great.
All right, Mackenzie, this next track might need a catch fence.
Yeah, it probably would. So this is historic racetrack aerials. They tweeted it's a bush-like clash at the Fiat factory roof track. So it's just a short oval track on top of a roof. I would say it would need a catch fence.
Top of a roof of a building. Holy cow! You're not kidding.
Yeah, I saw this tweet earlier in the week just on my own, and I scrolled right past it thinking it was some kind of Photoshop monstrosity, but apparently it's real. There's even banking in the corners.
If you look in between, like in the what would be the infield, there's actually like a 10-story building, and we're in the center, and then kind of around it, it's just like empty space. Like you said, if you drove off track, you better hang on.
Now, it does look like the wall is actually pretty tall in the corners.
It
Yeah,
looks like it has some pretty long straightaways and some pretty tight corners there too.
Yeah, kind of looks like if you had to take Martinsville, bank the corners, and double or triple the straightaway.
That'd be horrifying.
So
and
it's
put them
like
like 50 feet, 60 feet in the air.
Martinsville and the Coke Speedway got together and had a kid.
So this is the Fiat factory roof track. So you make cars and you need to test them. So we need to figure out where we're going to test them. We don't want to have to haul the cars out of the factory to test them. Oh, we'll just put a track on our roof. What a great idea.
Yeah, we have a couple, they call them testing grounds for Honda is out here in Hyundai. They're out in the middle of the desert and they have big, giant 3-mile ovals and road courses and whatnot. So, but to Mike's point, they have to bring the cars out here to test them.
I wonder if that's OSHA approved.
Maybe just install some nets.
Well, we were excited last week to hear that, especially me, that I can still keep using the website to register for races. But Mike, what do you think about the changes to the beta UI? I guess y'all covered this a little bit while I was still heading in, didn't you?
We did. We got a poll though on the forums, and there's 140 votes so far. 79% love it. 20% I hate it. I think I told you guys what I thought. A lot of blank space that's really not necessary. I mean, look at the screenshot in the forum post here, and look at all the black space above the main window. I just don't understand that. Like,
Didn't we talk about what they can use that blank space for a few weeks back, advertising their special events?
yeah. I just want results to work. I want to look up stats and to see what I run in my division. I want it to actually pull the stats. I'm still getting failure to fetch if I look them up a certain way.
I just got failure to fetch just now. This
See?
rocks. The UI is
failure
awesome.
to fetch. I mean, come on.
Maybe there's a switch they hit at the shop, and when it hits 5 p.m. East Coast time, it shuts off. Who knows?
All right, Justin, how many times do you get to be the number one car when you hop in an official?
Not very often yet. But iRacing Rage posted clips from an A Cup race with drivers with big differences of opinion. And it looks like it's a video, and it's just a bunch of guys bickering. It's quite funny.
I was entertained by this. That's why I put it on the script. I told the guy his channel is called Racing with Rob. He only has 272 subscribers, but he has a great video here where he basically shows, highlights of his race at Rockingham in the Cup car. But there's one guy that's on the chat that just kind of rubs everybody the wrong way, and he kind of highlights this guy and what he says. And at the end, calling each other out. One guy turned him at the end, and he's calling him an idiot, and those kind of things.
Yeah, this was
They
a
have an
great
argument.
example. Great example of why I mute my chat, except for super speedways. Just listening to the video, watching the video is giving me anxiety. Like, I just can't. We're grown men. We don't need to. I mean, he literally all race was just bitching and complaining and moaning and groaning, and just like find something in life that makes you happy.
But I tend to find that entertaining.
I found it entertaining
me,
too, and
not
I think
me.
a lot of people do on iRacing. I think a lot of people enjoy the kind of banter that goes on in some of these races,
And
I
if you
know
do
I
it,
do.
and that's what this was.
and if you do it in our split, other people that aren't even involved will start to stoke the fire. They'll just try to rile somebody up. It works sometimes too. They've gotten in my head a few times.
What about you guys, Justin, McKenzie? What do you guys think about these kind of banter on the radio?
I really don't mind it. I kind of agree with Dave. It's really quite entertaining. It makes me chuckle sometimes.
Yeah, I think the same. I think it's pretty entertaining to listen to them fight back and forth and have totally different opinions on what happened.
I like when somebody calls another guy out on the track and blaming each other when you only have one perspective at the time, and that's out your front windshield, and you have no idea what actually happened, but yet you're going to call this guy out and blame him, and then they don't even want to take responsibility once the replays, viewed that, oh, you know what, it was my fault. I'm sorry, but they just demand that apology right away when who knows who was at fault at the time.
It makes you appreciate the races that are, everybody's getting along and, having a good time.
Okay, let's wrap it up with one more thing. We have a post. The preliminary schedule is out for season 2. I've opened it up and took a look first at the IMSA series because that's always when I'm curious. They're going to Long Beach. That will be interesting.
Any other surprises?
That's the only one I've glanced at. Have y'all taken any looks?
I'm doing it right now.
I'll probably run the IR04 again at tracks I own. Trying to get used to that car still. I definitely going to do the new Gen 4 Cup as well. And that'll probably be the extent of what I do besides NIS.
I just took a glance at the European Sprint Series too, and it's running tracks. It's running a lot of regular tracks. Oh, but it is running Gilles Villeneuve. I'll definitely enjoy running that one.
So the Formula Ford looks like it's definitely going to be overseas. It's Brands Hatch, which is a fun turn 1, is on there. The new Jerez is on there as well. and your typical free tracks are on as well.
I'm generally not worried about looking up at the A car schedule, obviously, because we just know that's going to follow pretty closely to NIS, except for off weeks.
The GT4s will be at the Charlotte Roval week 1. That's interesting.
Okay, podcast housekeeping. Leave us a review of your favorite podcast platform to make it easier for more listeners to find us. Mention that podcast to your fellow drivers so they don't miss out. We do appreciate it. Join the Discord. You're going to hear stuff every day about what's going on in this community. And our website is iRacersLounge.com, where you can see the script and actually see everything we're looking at. Don't forget, we're in regular rotation at the Performance Motorsports Network.
All right. NASCAR was at Las Vegas last week, and Brian, we have our fantasy update.
Yes, sir. Las Vegas, not great racing on the track, but and another thing about Las Vegas was there wasn't really any crashes that knocked people out that would have cost people points. The only really noticeable one was Joey Logano getting kind of wrecked out, which means that there was opportunity for some big points. And sure enough, Shane 72 took first place for the week with a whopper of a 271 point race. Man, that's big points. Trick Dickel was second. Silver Mustang finished third. Aaron Tony Grove finished fourth for the week, tied with North South Racing, and I finished right behind him in sixth place. My best finish of the year, and probably the best finish in 2 years. Overall in the racing, Shane 72 takes the lead. Again, big points from this past week. Silver Mustangs in second, and Mason Racing is in third place in the points.
Well, I'm 57th this week. I mean, I really bombed it. Justin, you're 53rd. You bombed it too.
This is my first year doing this, the fantasy NASCAR. What is some general advice?
Kurt
Good
Busch.
drivers.
Well, it's a big deal to watch the races. So I was actually able to watch the races Sunday. I typically don't watch them live. I had Joey Logano in my top 5, and when he wrecked
So
out,
did I.
and when he wrecked out, I was able to make the change and bring in Christopher Bell, and that saved me tons of points right there. So keeping up on the race, even if you're not watching it, is a big deal. So at the end of the second stage, you can make any adjustments. That's a big deal. I finished sixth. I wouldn't have been in the top 20 probably if I kept Logano.
The picks
Yeah,
between the two
I'm
drivers.
definitely. Oh, I was going to say, Donnie, I definitely am not switching drivers out in the mid race. So, yeah, that's what's hurting me.
Yeah, the pick'ems between drivers this week was pretty tough. But yeah, for any advice, I don't know. You just gotta, like Brian was saying, you gotta actually to compete for this title. You gotta be watching the races and making your driver swaps and whatnot. But it gets frustrating. Like you can have especially plate tracks, you're just really rolling the dice and whatnot. But it's all for fun. That's what I tell myself. But my competitive nature doesn't allow me to have fun. I punish myself if I don't do well in this.
But it's still early in the season, and I was in the 50s in the point standings, and then after one good week, I'm like in the mid 20s. So you can really, it's still early, and you can make up a lot of points yet.
Well, I'm not last place in it anymore. I think I'm third last now, but I didn't ninth.
There you go. Moving on up. All right. And then what do you guys like? Who do you like for Phoenix? I mean, forever we've gone to Phoenix and everyone's like Harvick. Is it Harvick? I don't know if Harvick's going to do it just because Stuart Haas isn't really on the up and up right now.
I could see Larson winning. Phoenix, at least.
I like Bell.
I mean, Joey Logano. I mean, he's won there a million times, right?
Yeah, just won there a couple months ago, and Blaney finished second right behind him.
So can we really go past this week without talking about Blaney and his failed potential?
Ugh.
Somebody called him out this week. Who was it? Kyle Petty, I think it was.
Yeah, there's a reason I picked him as my driver after Junior retired, but I don't know. I'm liking Zane Smith being a California kid. I don't know. I've never just dropped a driver. Well, mainly because I was a senior junior fan growing up, but Blaney kind of, I don't know. It's hard to describe.
They keep comparing him. They keep comparing him to Casey Kane, which I think they're two totally different drivers.
Failed potential, right?
I remember Casey Kane coming up as a badass, and I remember Brian Blaney coming up as not a badass. And really, the only reason he was on a Star Wars podcast the year Junior is retiring. I was like, oh, maybe, and he actually sounded like he was a Star Wars fan, not just somebody that says they are. And he was renting a house from Junior at the time on his property. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to pick Ryan Blaney as my next driver. And then it is what it is. Very frustrating.
Well, at least he didn't break his leg snowboarding, so there you go.
He probably wouldn't even do that.
Checked. Now, I checked, guys. I didn't have Chase in my lineup. Okay, so.
People keep, I know Josh Berry had a crappy, I mean, I won't say it's crappy. He just got thrown in that car. And it's weird seeing these people in person walk around, especially after they get that news. But people are very high on him that he's going to do well in these next 4 to 5 weeks in that car, especially going to Martinsville.
Man, I would have put somebody else in the car. Somebody with Cup experience.
Who are you going to put in there?
Somebody with 7 championships, maybe. Might be familiar with the Hendrick team.
Yeah,
now that he has his own team.
Yeah.
They're like, take your knowledge and get out of here.
You can't talk Jeff Gordon into getting into the car again. Come on.
There's a time when you've got to move on to fresh blood. Okay, I mean, are we gonna? How far we want to take it back? Are we gonna go hunt down Sterling Marlin and Mark Martin?
I think
now Mark Martin would be awesome.
Blood. I mean, I would love to see him back, but I mean, he's definitely mentally moved on from.
I think Gordon even said he's not in race shape to even race. He did pretty poorly in that Porsche race at Indy last year.
I told you guys when this happened, I want Carl Edwards at Phoenix because Carl has won at Phoenix. Find Carl Edwards and give him $100,000 and have him come race a race.
Yeah, he quit driving like before Matt, before Mark, before Jeff, before Junior.
Yeah,
I mean, you're kind of stuck in nostalgia land, I think, with the drivers you see hop on.
Well, when Kenseth came back, he didn't really do that well. So, I think once it's out of you, it's out of you. It's hard to get it back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And Chevy has a pipeline problem right now because Sam Mayer was supposed to be their next big thing, and he's kind of hit a stunt in his growth. He's not progressing as quickly as I think they wanted him to. And other than that, they don't got a whole lot. So Josh Berry was the next logical, choice.
I think Allgaier would be a good choice. He's been around forever. He's never really got a serious break for Cup cars, but he's always been super competitive in Xfinity.
And he subbed before into Cup, so yeah, he would have been a really good choice, I think.
Yeah, he did it last year, I think. It might have been last year, the year before for the 48 car.
Yeah, when Bowman had his concussions. Yeah.
All right, let's open up the Metro Ford hardware software section with a SimuCube extension. Kick this one off, Justin.
Yeah, looks like we got a racing sim racing bay has an extension for the SemiCube 2 wheelbase. This is interesting because I have this wheelbase. And it's got a list of specs: 130 millimeter in length, compatible with SemiCube 2 systems, Sport, Pro, and Ultimate. Weighs around um, 365 grams. And I know Mike has an extension. And do you like it?
Well, so I got a wheel extension I mounted to the wheel. Okay, so I actually have two of them, one on each wheel, and then that mounts to the regular base. Now, what this is a little different. It runs an extension off of the base, and then you hook the wheel to it. So the extension is permanently mounted to the base and sticking out, 4 or 5 inches. So it's a bit different setup than what I got. I kind of like it in the fact that you would only need one extension. You don't need one for every wheel.
Now, why did you get an extension for your wheel?
Oh, just the plain fact of the wheel's too far away from my body. I needed it closer. So when I had the DD1 and the way that quick release is and so forth, it really sticks out from the mount pretty far, and it was far enough where it was comfortable. And then when I moved to the SemiCube, it's a much more low profile sticking out of the motor. I mean, and so I lost a good 4 or 5 inches, so that's why I needed the extension. Pretty neat. What do you think, Donnie? Would you rather go with this once off the motor, or would you like to, do like I did and put one on every wheel?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just putting both wheels on and off just to see. The Gomez wheel came with an extension on it already, 3 inches, and when I put it on in relation to my oval wheel, I actually like that it's closer to me. The Gomez wheel, the Formula wheel, and then my oval wheel. I was thinking, man, maybe I could use a couple inches of extension, but I wouldn't go this route. I'd go with off the wheel just because I already have one system that way. But yeah, no, it's a good option. I mean, if you're starting this way, that way you don't have to buy the ones for the wheel. But since my wheel came with one, I might as well go that route.
I like it because I think that's the one thing about the SemiCube design is the quick release is so close to the face of the motor of where it's mounted and everything that the wheel is always going to be too far away. So I almost feel like they need to build this in as part of the package almost.
Have you raked your knuckles on pulling out your pin against your wheelbase mount yet?
Oh yeah, and that's part of the problem. If you don't have one, you're definitely going to do that. Because you got to yank on that thing to pull it out, that pin.
You sure do.
Boy, you really got to put some heft into it. And then when you're putting it in, I usually hit it with the bottom of my palm, and if I didn't have the extension, my hand wouldn't even fit in there really. Pretty neat product, and it's 70 euros.
All right, Brian, you're our motion guy. It looks like we've got a motion rig that attaches directly to your seat.
That's right, Dave. This is the NJ Motion Compact R base. So, yeah, so instead of using actuators on the corners of your rig and moving your rig up and down and so forth, this is a little bit more simpler. It actually just has a base with a platform on top. It almost looks like a scale. And the seat just mounts to the top of it, and that's where your motion comes from. It's all coming from the seat. It's not your whole rig that's moving. It's just your chair. It's runs about €24.99, which is like mid $2,600 US. So it's comparable in price to like the less expensive actuator systems, a little bit less than an actuator system. They do take about 20 to 30 business days to get, so it mentions that on their website. So it's if you do buy it, prepared to wait a little while. It's going to be the longest month of your life after you purchase it. And then they do have some reviews from this. Dan Suzuki, who's like one of the more popular iRacing or sim racing content providers, he did a review of this and he really liked it. Mentioned that it was really quiet, which is good. He also mentioned that it was that he didn't notice because your seat's moving and your steering wheel is not in one of these systems as opposed to a platform where everything's moving, and he didn't notice he didn't find that to be distracting or didn't have a problem with it at all. So he actually recommended this over like a four actuator system, a SFX 1000 type system. So yeah, good reviews, decent price for like a motion, but so yeah, it looks like something might be worth looking into if you're looking at motion and want to avoid the four actuator system, or if you don't have a 80/20 rig that you can use for motion, might be a really good alternative.
Can this be mounted to 80/20?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, it's got 4 feet on the bottom.
So yeah, I guess you'd have to separate the seat from the 80/20 rig.
Probably,
I think it
yes.
sits within, depending on how wide it is. I think it sits within your 80/20 on the ground.
And
Exactly.
It's got adapter parts for it for extra cost, like 35 euros. That'll help attach it to 80/20 parts. I think that's what you would use, and some side supports for your seats if you have a seat that needs side supports. So there's a couple extra available accessories to make it work on your system.
Yeah, I think if you were going to throw it into an 80/20, like if I would want to. My seat sits up pretty high. It would be too low to the ground, I think, if it wasn't on the 80/20 attachable.
Yeah, so we found this in our Discord channel this week. Dr. Orzi, one of our listeners, is telling us that this will be his next upgrade later this year. He did find it from watching the Dan Suzuki video, and he's convinced that this is going to be something that he's going to like. Now, I had some questions that I posted in the Discord, like, hey, how do you lower this is going to add 8 inches to the height of your seat. And he did indicate that Dr. Orzi he's going to drop it inside of his 80/20 cockpit. He said it does fit in between. So you basically just put it in there, and the height will basically be, work out to be the same. The other concern I had was that I mentioned in the Discord was, I think it's weird that your seat is moving, but the wheel and the pedals aren't moving with it. So
Yeah.
David, you had mentioned, like, how do you keep the consistent force on a hydraulic pedal when the seat is going about?
I don't know. I have to be able to
Right.
test it to tell you.
Good question. Well,
You
again,
probably can't.
Dan didn't have a problem with it. I don't know what pedals he's using, but he didn't have a problem with it as far as the steering wheel goes.
That's true. And that's what Dr. Orzi pointed out, that Dan Suzuki didn't have any problems with it and thought it would be fine.
But he may not be
So-
using hydraulic pedals. I'm sorry, but the force you have to put on a hydraulic is way different. And
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. It's tempting. I would love to try it.
njmotion.com.
All right, the next one that we have up, Donnie, is a play seat review.
9 to 5 Toys reviewed a play seat branded by Logitech. It's your typical, I won't say typical play seat, but it's that fold up. You can move it around the room if you'd like. You can adjust the pedals real nice. If it's for what you're looking for. If you are limited in space, maybe limited in budget, and you could throw that Logitech direct drive on it. Looks like it mounts to it. But the adjustment of to make it longer, to shorten up the rig itself. Take some Allen keys, you do the Allen keys, and you pull it out. But the reviewer liked it. Is what it is. I mean, it's not my style, nothing I'd go for, but the frame is powder coated, a gray color, has a decent seat. It's going to have like I mentioned, the Logitech branding all over it. So you're going to get that with it if you like it. But what'd you guys think?
Well, this is at least one of the versions where you don't have the center post interfering with your feed operation.
Yeah, it looks pretty sturdy for what it is. You're right. You don't have that center post. It's tubular. I'm just worried about that center portion where it separates to make it longer or shorter, because now you're separating that rig into two pieces with the middle piece joining it. So I don't know how that's going to work over time. You probably aren't going to put a set of hydraulics on this thing and using that force to press down, but yeah, I mean, it's for somebody.
Kind of a steel pipe, kind of cockpit made out of piping, maybe 2-inch. But if you have a Logitech direct drive, the new Logitech, and you want something that's kind of branded to go with it, this is it. I mean, the seat has a big old Logitech G on it, and says Logitech along the sides of the cockpit. So if you're looking for a certain look, I mean, this ain't bad. But again, I wouldn't go with a pipe cockpit. I've been there, done that.
I can pick this next one up. It's a pretty quick hit. It's actually a from Anthony Alfredo, NASCAR driver and iRacer extraordinaire. He streams quite a bit too, right? And he's recommending the Logitech Litra beam for the best lighting for sim racing streamers. So they're beams that sit on top of the monitor, and they're basically for lighting your face up.
Now, okay, so if you're in a video production and you need your face lit up, I think these are great. But I don't know that, if you're not, trying to light up your face, I don't know how they help with racing at all. I mean, I don't think the regular iRacer needs light like this.
This is specifically for the camera.
Right.
This is basically for your face. That's exactly what it's for.
So it wouldn't be for us, Mike.
Yeah, this is way different than the lighting I do. Now I sent you guys a picture a couple days ago of my rig. I think I had it lit up red with a bright red, but that's the beauty of the lighting I have. It's from above. It's like over your head, so it doesn't go down onto the screens. It's not pointing in your eyes. The problem with these lights I see is they're like literally like right in your eyes, So I wouldn't want to race with something like this, but hey, if it's all about the stream and not the racing, why not?
What is this about? They're not messy, Brian or Mike?
I'll take this one. We talked about this a few weeks ago. The Sim 3D pedal rumble kit, and I'd been corrected by Tony Groves and some other people that I thought it might look messy with the wires coming off the pedals. But I've been assured that that's not the case. You can kind of tell by looking at these pictures of the kit on the back of these pedals. I was wrong, actually. So I just wanted to point that out. It's got a nice, neat look to it. Tony highly recommends them. I think Steve Thompson bought these as well.
Yeah, you can even see the wires.
Right. So that was more of like just a story correction. But yeah, check this out. Like I said, Tony and Steve have said good things about them.
With my pedals, Dave, being inverted, I'm curious how I would run that wire and not make it look like crap.
You'd have to run it you'd have to run it up and then across and then down.
the pedal, yeah, somehow. Now, when you go to order it, you tell them what pedals you have, and they have a list here of all of them, and I guess that gets you the right kind of mount. Now, Sim Coaches is actually listed there, Donnie.
Yeah, I've seen the Sim Coach version of him. He was actually going to sell them on the site as a part of the package.
This might be something I add on in the future to kind of complement my 2 butt kickers. I've never thought about putting one on the front yet, but this would be a good replacement for, instead of doing a front butt kicker, is let's do the pedal rumble kit. 95 to 110 euros.
All right, we always like to say we're trying to we do a good job of spending our new guys' money when they come on the show. Mackenzie, we're going to try to convince you to go ahead and go for a motion rig by talking about Anthony Alfredo's setup.
Yeah, so Anthony Alfredo puts a post on Twitter here. D-Box Tech sent him a full mash or motion platform to put under his rig. So in the video, he just lifts up his rig and gets some help just to slide it right under there. He says, "Here's a clip from adding their full haptic system to my racing simulator. It truly is plug and play, adding a whole new level of immersion to your rig or cockpit." So he goes on to say that the D-Box motion platforms they're fully electronic and they're not very noisy at all.
And we saw this at the Sim Racing Expo, if you recall, and it looked actually quite a bit different than the version that Anthony has. It definitely looks like they've stepped up the design of it. The one we saw at the Sim Racing Expo was literally just like a black rectangle that you would set your cockpit on. This one's got it's more refined. It's thinner. It expands out on the 4 corners. So the 4 corner post, that the rig sits on, it sits right on it. So it's more low profile than we saw at the Sim Racing Expo. It's actually red. They got a color to it, and it doesn't appear to be as thick as it was before. So they definitely have upgraded it. Now I went looking for a price, looking, can you buy it? I couldn't find it, to be honest.
Does this platform mount to your rig, or does your rig simply sit on top of it?
It sits on top of it, I think.
So how's that going to work for vibration and your rig slipping and sliding?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we saw a video at the Sim Racing Expo. I mean, Anthony didn't show us a video of him running it, so I think that's an outstanding question.
Yeah, because it just shows him lifting up the rig and sliding this under, and then that's really it. I'm curious how it mounts.
Now, there's a couple other links in the story, guys. If you click them, you're going to see the original unit I mentioned from the Sim Racing Expo, and you can see how different it looks than the unit that Anthony's got. So I assume they're the same product, but maybe they are different.
Yeah, the one that was available at the expo that they have on their website has clamps on it. Looks like some kind of clamp system to hold your rig in place. And it's also, if this is it, it comes with a typical D-Box price tag. It's $9,500.
Yeah, we did find it for sale. Actually, I recall now. I got a link here for rseat-europe.com. Has it for sale for 9,500 euros. And it shows pictures of a racing cockpit sitting on it, but also a love seat. Like you take a couple lounge, recliners and stick on it, and you watch a movie. So you got to remember, D-Box is really big into moving for movies and that kind of thing.
And this was actually spurred on by the Coke race because D-Box was a sponsor, and Anthony Alfredo was like, "Hey, they're the sponsor. I'm going to show you a little bit about their product."
Let's do one more before results, David.
All right, I'll pick this one up real quick. I mentioned that I got to meet a bunch of guys from that were, I forget the name of the charity right now, um, but they race it. They supply racing rigs for disabled veterans, and so this always reminds me of that. This is a hands-on performance HU1, and it's a brake accelerator sim racing hand that gives you throttle and control brakes with your hands. And it really actually kind of reminds me of an old driver's ed car that we had at school when we had some kids who didn't have the use of their legs. So it's pretty neat. I'm curious if this would be easier to use than the hand pedals on the rim, because if you do use this, then one of your hands is going to be off of the rim. Might be better in ovals than say road course, but it does have either a load cell or some kind of hydraulic that is involved on the control. So I'm sure you could develop some really fine muscle memory and get some precise control with it.
That's what I was thinking, David, is like you got to have a hand on this thing and it does gas and brake depending on if you push it forward or back. So there's like a happy center middle. And so the more you go forward, the faster it goes. And then if you go backwards from middle, you got braking. And so you would always have to have your hand on it, and then you would have one hand on the wheel, I guess. Yeah, I just can't, envision how, why would you want to? I guess a person with no legs or no feet, kind of thing. They can't use pedals. They would use this, but I still think the paddles on a Formula wheel would be better, wouldn't it? Because you would have both hands on the wheel.
It depends on how much pressure you can get, because you can do a lot more muscle memory with an arm than you can with a finger.
And pressure's good. Looks like
and this is
forward
a real
brake.
tall. It's a real tall lever, like you said too, that you could probably get a lot of muscle memory on.
Yeah, it looks like forward is brake, and then pulling back is the throttle. So that'd be kind of different to get used to. But I like it, man. This is something pretty cool.
That was exactly how the throttle worked on this on the driver's ed car, except it pushed forward for throttle and back for brake. And I actually drove it a few times for events and tried using it just to see what it would be like. And you definitely would have to adjust to it. But when you don't have a choice, humans are pretty good at adjusting to things.
Yeah, I'm looking at this build, and it looks pretty simple. It's got a nice rubber, I guess, bushing that you can probably change out for stiffness. But I'm trying to figure out where the sensor would be in this thing, unless it's down in that base plate.
Pretty sleek, 365 euros. It is for sale at digital-motorsports.com.
All right, Mike,
All right,
roll us into some results.
Results. Let's do it. NASCAR iRacing Series. Let's finish up Vegas. Friday Open. I was running about 10th or so, and I got spun by a guy coming up. It was basically no damage. Later on, I got spun again up against the wall, 30 seconds required and 3 optional. I ended up fixing the 1 minute and staying on the lead lap. Interestingly, I was able to drive to the top 5 fairly quickly and was restarted 5th with 20 to go. Was running really good, and sorry, I had to do something there. Was running really good, and then all of a sudden the car got the hospital wobble loose, and I fell all the way to 18th right at the end of the race. Yuck. David, P3.
Yeah, this is finally my first, I guess, top 5 of the year in NIS so far. So it felt good. I felt like I was off to a mediocre start, but again, I'm running with a lot of tough opponents. I was running 15th after 2 green flag stops, so it's just kind of a mid-pack car. But there was a caution with 25 laps to go, and this is backwards. I'm usually a long run speed driver, but with this particular car, I had to really take care of the right rear tire. So when it was a long run, I just did not go that hard. I didn't I didn't lose a lot of spots, but it kept me in the 15th mid pack range. But we had several short runs at the end, and I could pick up kind of running around on the outside 4 spots per lap, and yeah, just a lot of short runs at the end. Came out with a P3.
Well done. Was that top split or?
I think this one was second. It was on Friday night. So right now there's enough people showing up that I'm either second or third split on Friday nights.
All right, Justin, how'd you do?
Started 34th, was the 34 car, so I chose not to qualify. Strategy move. I thought it would work well in my favor. Worked my way up to 17th on green flag stops. We needed to pit during green flag. Green flag stops were coming, and I got caught speeding on pit road. Went 2 laps down. I know I couldn't catch up after that, and I ended the night P24th, so not a very good one.
All right. Sunday Open, Brian, P4.
Yeah, had a good race that track. My car was a little on the loose side, and I made some adjustments that kind of made it a little more stable, but I wasn't quite as fast on early runs, but I could keep up the pace on the long runs. And luckily, we had a couple long runs. I actually wound up taking the lead at one point, led a few laps. Caution came out, and then I got a little shuffled back a little bit after a restart because I just didn't have that early speed. But as the longer run went on, I started pulling cars back in, made my way back up to fourth before the thing finally ended. If I think if it was a longer run, I could have done a lot better. The guy who won the race, though, he was really fast. I don't know if I would have had anything for that guy because he was checking out from everybody. So P4, I'll take that.
It's your first top 5 in a long time, Brian.
Yeah, well, I've been running a whole lot of NIS at the end of last year because of all my computer problems. But yeah, I'm happy to be back in the top 5. I've actually
back where you belong.
I'm going to knock on wood here, but so far every race, every track this year in NIS, I've led at one point or another. I don't think that's going to hold up through Phoenix because I'm just not good at Phoenix. But what the heck? Let's try.
Right. Sunday fixed. And I missed it. I had a family birthday party, missed the start of the race. Justin, you ran. How'd you do?
Started 8th. I made it to green flag pit stops again, which I worked my way up to 4th. Then after the field halfway cycled, after I pit during green flag stops, a yellow flew, which caused me to be a lap down. But luckily, I was the first one on lead lap. Got the lucky dog. Restart went well. Took it easy for a few laps. Another quick caution came. Went to the pits. Luckily for me, I must have hit all my marks. Worked my way up from 11th. I think I gained 4 or 5 positions, if I remember right. But then this led to a green-white checkered. I started 11th, and in that green-white checkered, I kind of bumped and banged and made my way to 8th. So finally had a positive NIS for once.
Right. Nice top 10. Now you just need to stack them up, man. Let's switch to Phoenix. Wednesday Open. Greg wrecked out. Greg's not with us, but yeah. My race, I had a P6. I actually had a fast car when driving forward on most runs. I finally pitted it under green on a long run, and sure enough, the caution came out while I was on pit road. Man, it's terrible luck. I was able to take the wave around and stay on the lead lap and drive forward, but I couldn't recover from that. Ended up P6. Tom Dreiling, P4. He actually started last, didn't qualify, was able to work his way up to the top 10 after 2 long green runs. Got involved in some bumping a little bit later as I liked the high line. A few late yellows, and I'll take my third top 5 of the season. Mackenzie wrecked out early.
Yeah, I don't even think I made it around to the finish line on the start, and some guy hit the bottom of the corner, came up, took me out, and I had like 18 minutes damage, so I just didn't even bother with it.
You just can't catch a break. It seems like we need to get you out of those lower splits.
Yeah, I really can't. I was running the Sunday Open also, and I was running really well. I was up in 5th, and I got a call for work, so I had to get off and go. So I probably could have finished well on that one. It was halfway through the race, but that really sucked.
That's the kind of calls you let go to voicemail, right?
Yeah, I couldn't this week. I was on call, so I had to pick it up.
Ooh. All right, David, P9.
Yeah, I got spun early, but didn't take any damage as a result. It put me a lap down though because I waited to let all the cars clear by and had to stay behind the pace car. So I took two cautions to get the lucky dog, but I did finally get that. And then for the rest of the race, cars just started dying around me. I was about a 17th place car for the early part of the race, but yeah, there was just wreck after wreck after wreck, and I even got involved in one of them, causing about a minute's worth of optional that I didn't fix, but survived all of the death for a P9.
Nice. All right, Thursday Open. I was excited because of how well I ran on Wednesday night with a P6. And if I hadn't been caught a lap down, I probably would have maybe contended for the win. So went into this race kind of cocky, too cocky. I forgot to load the race set after qualifying like a fool. I realized it when the car wasn't as fast after a few laps. I mean, it was fast in the short run, but man, on the long run, I was fading hard. Like it was snappy loose in the middle of the corner. I would have to lift to kind of save it, and they would go on by me. So every time there was a long run, I would just fade backwards. Um, anyway, um, ended up P11, which was actually a fairly decent finish considering the set problem. So I think I told the guys today I need a third party app that prevents me from getting in the car unless I've loaded the right set. So I need something.
You actually get that in the roadside with JRT because you can unload fuel on the qualifying sets. So it'll beep at you if you jump in the car without full fuel.
What, Donnie, you told me post-it note on the monitor. I don't know.
Yeah, I typically put a note just by my
Okay. Let's move on to other racing. Week 13, I ran Pickup Cup at Phoenix. I got wrecked out. I ran Carburetor Cup at iRacing Super Speedway. I got wrecked out. Ran another Pickup Cup at Phoenix, finished P4. I can't tell you how much fun Pickup Cup is at Phoenix. That thing drives off the right rear, and you're dirt tracking the corners the way the set is. It's a blast. David, you got a win at Sebring IMSA.
Yeah, was there, and this one, I believe I was running like third, and was staying right with the two guys, and they kind of short pitted, which means they might have been running lighter on fuel. Because when I came out, I was well over 6 seconds ahead of both of them, and just held on to the lead to take the win. That's probably
Well
kind of my
done.
favorite track now. At least one of my most successful tracks.
All right, Brian, OBRL Cup P34.
Yeah, so started in 10th place. We were at Vegas following the Cup schedule. Full field, 43 cars. The setup that we were using was really loose after like 10 to 12 laps. It's a fixed setup race, so everybody's using the same set. Um, and Man, it was wicked, diabolically loose. Um, I had to run the high line the whole race, and I'm not typically a high line driver, but it was the only way I could try to keep the thing stable. After 10 laps, if I ran the bottom, just barely touching the throttle would spin me out. So I wound up just staying up high. Stayed in the top 15 until about halfway through. I made contact with a car coming out of turn two. I was trying to pass him, and I ventured to the bottom despite how unstable it was, and just barely touched him. No incident points or nothing. He didn't lose. He didn't. Nothing happened to him. It just turned me down towards the apron a little bit, and I was didn't spin the car, nothing. But I had to get back on the track and lost a bunch of spots. But after some cautions, I made it back into the top 12, and had another long run towards the end of the race, and a couple scary moments again, just because it was snapping around on me. I was as I was able to save it until one time with about 25 laps where I just lost it. I didn't recover. I wound up hitting a car, hitting the wall, another car hit into me, and I went down like 4 laps with my damage. Got back out just to finish the race at the back of the field, and finished in 34th. But I do want to congratulate Josh Robinson on the win. Greg McDaniels finished second, and Eric Essery, who started in the back of the field and drove his way to third place. That was a really impressive run by Eric.
All right. Let's jump to final thoughts then. Brian McCubbin.
Well, so this build I thought was a little underwhelming. And we had talked a little bit how they